featured artist in the Griffin Gallery at WinCAM. I'm Krista Dix, Executive Director of the Griffin Museum of Photography, and we are thrilled you've joined us to talk with our featured artist, Scott Offen, about his exhibition Grace on the walls at WinCAM. The Griffin Museum is based here in Winchester with a satellite gallery here at WinCAM. Scott Offen is an East Coast photographer whose work has been exhibited around the country and featured online. His first monograph, Grace, was published by L'Artière in 2025, followed by a book signing at APAD in New York City. That same year, he presented his first solo exhibition in Chelsea, New York, at the Curator Lab. Scott holds both a bachelor's and master's from the Massachusetts College of Art and Design, where he received the Graduate Thesis Award in 2024. Offen uses a range of photographic formats from 8x10 to digital. His work has recently been reviewed by Forbes, L'Oeil de Photographie, Sky Art, Collateral, Monochrome Masters, Collector Daily, The Eye of Photography, and What Will You Remember? There are additional publications where you can find Scott's work. Grace was chosen for an On the Shelf at the 2025 Filter Photo Festival. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Your show is gorgeous. It is intimate, it is beautiful. We can feel as if we're participating in this conversation that you're having with Grace. But first, tell us, who is Grace?
So Grace is my wife. We've been married for 30-something years. I don't really date from when we were married because we've been together since for
Forever.
41 years.
Yeah.
So I date 41 years. I don't really date exactly when we got married.
So let's talk a little bit about how you made the jump from your day job to photography. What was the impetus for that?
Well, we have to go back to when I was a kid. My father was an amateur photographer. He had great equipment. He had a Leica and a Rolleiflex, but he didn't know what to do with it. He just took snapshots of the family. And he interested my elder brother in photography and taught him how to photograph. But he didn't really have much time for me. I was this younger son, and my older brother was the pride.
And left to your own devices.
And left to my own devices. And so I was so interested in photography, I used to walk around and say things like, "That's a photograph, that's a photograph." And I did this for many, many years. And then I went to work. I worked at an investment firm in Boston. And I noticed there, downtown around South Station, there were a lot of unhoused people. And you know, the tragedy is those people are not ignored, people turn away from them. It's worse than being ignored. So I decided to photograph them because I really wanted people to see them. I thought if they're not going to look at them in real life, they'll look at them on the wall. And I did that for about 5 years, and I took that work to Mass Art, and they admitted me on the basis of that work.
That's great.
And in my sophomore year at Mass Art, my professor said, "You've created a family of choice." I was photographing at that time a small group of people. She said, "Why don't you photograph your family of origin?" And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I hadn't known about family photography, and she gave me some books to look at, and I decided to do that. And the only person that would cooperate with me was Grace. And so we just started right away in 2017 making work together.
So how do you collaborate? Because collaboration is a huge part of this series.
So there are lots of ways that we collaborate. So first, just agreeing to photograph somebody, you're already collaborating. And to be photographed, you're collaborating. It's a collaborative art. And we developed a number of processes that would allow collaboration to be more smooth, because sometimes among strong-willed people there are disagreements. And so we had a rule that everybody's photograph gets made. And by that, each of us got to be the captain of the ship sometime and say, no, that photograph is going to be made. And then when we sequence it, we'll decide whether or not we keep it. And another way that we collaborated was that very often we agreed, this was the photograph, this is what to do. And so they were really collaborated in many ways. And also, especially in sequencing, all of the sequencing was really done with Grace.
So how did you come up with your ideas? I mean, there's that stunning portrait of Grace in the leaves, and it's the leaves are huge against her back, and she looks so small in there. How did you try to entice her to jump into a plant?
Well, she's on a blanket, so she was not on the wet leaves. She was very much did not want to be in wet leaves. So it was actually close to our house, and I went and I got a coverlet, woven coverlet that was my grandmother's, and we put it on the leaves. And she's actually photographed in a dip, and we chose that so that you would have no sense of perspective. She's surrounded by leaves, and you can't tell where she really is.
No, there's no sense of scale in that image,
Right.
and it's beautiful at the same time, really disturbing.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that's important about our photography is we both love patterning. So there was a lot of patterning. The leaves were a pattern, the blanket was a pattern, her dress was a pattern, her hair was a pattern. And that really comes out of our love of Matisse and my love of West African portrait photography.
So talk a little bit about that. Was that an inspiration for you to create this series?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't know how I found, Malik Sidibe or Seydou Keita or any of those really famous photographers that have been too long ignored in the West. But I stumbled upon them, and I realized that this was such a gripping way of modeling the body and fooling the eye, because you have opposing, contrasting patterns, and you have to kind of work to see, what is it that I want to look at? Do I want to look at the leaves? Do I want to look at the dress? What about the blanket? So it became an important part of our strategy.
Do you sketch out the ideas before, or do you have a sort of a shot list, as it were?
Oh yeah. So very often I dream the photograph, and I work in it sometimes for years to get it right. Other times we go out in the woods and it just happens. But there are actually 2 photographs that I still want to make of Grace, even though the book is finished. For my own sake.
Well, the series is never finished, though, right? Once you have a collaborator.
Right. So, yeah, there are 2 photographs that I really want to make.
And these are photographed with a large format camera?
So I use everything. I'm not, religion is for church, not for photography. So I love using my 8x10. It's a wonderful experience. But, I've also used 4x5, I've used 5x7, I've used medium format 6x7, and I've used a whole bunch of digital cameras. I use the tool that I think I really need. And for a bunch of those photographs that I've made, they could only have been made digitally. And so I don't...
I was thinking more about carrying that tripod and all the large format equipment, all of the film holders and such, out to these remote locations where we're seeing the work being photographed. So
yeah, it's heavy. That's all I can say is it's heavy. And I mean, I didn't have an assistant when I made those photographs, but now I have an assistant because I'm just getting tired of carrying all that equipment.
yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your use of black and white. How did you see the series specifically in black and white?
I like black and white because I feel it forces you to look at form and structure. And I think color can bring you to the surface. And I really want to get into the photograph. I want to pull the viewer into the photograph.
So let's talk a little bit about light, because that's one of the highlights of your images, is how you use light. There's an image out in front in the exhibition that has Grace's foot, and there's the light coming in on the side, and the light is actually reflecting onto the sole of her foot. How did you find that? Did you know that was going to happen, or is that one of those serendipitous moments?
That was, well, we had taken that photograph in different ways for several times. So I had figured out that was going to happen. But photography is about light, writing with light. We work really hard to get good light. And we only, and we only show the photographs that have good light. There are plenty of them were on flat days where nothing was modeled and it was just kind of a boring picture.
Is there a time of day that you prefer to shoot?
Well, we avoid 10 to 2.
The brightest part of the
Right,
day.
right.
Yeah.
And so we shoot either in the morning or in the afternoon. And often we're driving places, so we take that middle of the day to drive somewhere.
So if you're thinking about the next generation of photographers, how would you talk with them about collaboration, about creativity? What have you learned that you can pass on to the next generation?
I think the most important thing to understand is that art, and especially photography, are collaborative by definition. It's always the artist talking to an audience, or the artist working with a model. And if the model agrees to cooperate with a photographer, that's automatically collaboration. And there can be creative collaboration. I've collaborated with people other than Grace to make photographs, where we sit around and put ideas together and brainstorm. I think that's the best part of photography, is collaborating and collaborating with people. I love collaborating with my assistant. So when we go out to photograph, he has a no vote. If he says,
that's very generous. I know a lot of photographers that don't.
Right. Well, if I have the yes vote, so a lot of times he likes things that I don't, but he might say like, well, that's sophomore work, because we both went to Mass Art. He's like, that's sophomore work, and I like, I'm okay. We're not going to take that photograph. So, but really, it was also in our case the fact that we had been together for so long, that we have an intuitive understanding of the other, and a tremendous amount of trust. So there are photographs that haven't been seen of Grace on the ice, where she was not entirely comfortable, but she trusted me that I had jumped up and down on the ice and it was going to be okay. And in so many ways, we worked together like that.
How many times did the image that you were looking for fall apart or not be what you wanted it to be?
Oh, all the time. I would say our success rate was between 2 and 5%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you do in that circumstance?
You go out tomorrow. I mean, it's hard. You look at your own photograph and you realize that's not so great, which is better than having a critic say to you that's not so great. And then you just look at the ones that worked and think about, why did they work? What made them work? How could I make this other one work differently? So we re-photographed things a bunch of times.
Speaking of which, wasn't there a conversation that I might have overheard about you with Grace on a rock in the middle of the tidal area?
Yeah. So at World's End in Hingham, there is, by the way, that was supposed to be the site of the United Nations. But at World's End, there's a tidal area with a huge glacial erratic. And originally I thought I'd get Grace up on a ladder and have her just sit on it, but it has a very sharp top and it's probably 20 feet high, so it wouldn't be a wise idea anyway. But we tried photographing that a lot of times. Now, to photograph that, there's like an 8-foot tide, and you have to coordinate low tide with where the sun is in the sky so that you can have the light that you want at low tide. And it took us about 5 years.
I was going to say, that's a once-in-a-lifetime shot right there to make sure that all those forces align.
It took us 5 years, and we also tried a whole bunch of different, postures and things. And the rocks are really wet and slippery, so that if you fall, it's not going to be a pleasant experience.
No, that's not going to be comfortable.
No. So yeah, it took us a crazy amount of dedication to make that photograph. I don't know if we have it in us to do that again, But that was a 5-year process.
I was going to say, what's the next photograph for you?
I really want to photograph Grace in water and in swamps. So we have a bunch of those photographs that just didn't work out, where Grace, who loves to fly fish, has waders. And so she would take these sort of voluminous summer dresses and put them over her waders, and then she would go into the swamp, and I would photograph her in the swamp. We did that a bunch of times.
Could you call it a pond or something? I mean, swamp really indicates some nasty, brackish sort of water.
It wasn't a pond, it was a swamp.
There's a dinner at the end of that, right? There's some.
So we, in fact, Grace would sink, and I would have to lift her up and move her around because, you know, there's probably a foot of muck at the bottom.
Oh,
and
that's not good.
Right, no. And the other one I want to photograph her is in one of 2 rivers of her in the water. There's a beautiful bend in these places, and the, you know, the conifers, and I think it would look like she's in Minnesota or something. We try to create a world that's not a specific place.
I was going to say, because between the forests that you're photographing in and the larger, almost prairies, it feels like, the larger fields, there's no sense of place at all. I couldn't pin down this is exactly where this is going to happen, or that there is one home, as it were.
That's right. And one of the reasons behind that was to have the viewer focus on Grace and not on a familiar landscape or a particular landscape. Oh, we know this is a forest dweller. Oh, we know this is a person that lives in the prairie or the swamp. By mixing it all up together, you sort of create, because they're all different, you kind of create this kind of magical place. It's a place, but it's a place that you don't really understand. And that was by design. And also, in terms of her clothing, we also avoided anything that would be a signal when the photograph was taken. We wanted to take time out of it, except that she, in most of the photographs, she's wearing a really crappy plastic black watch that she wouldn't take off, but very often it's not visible.
I was going to say, I don't remember seeing it at all, so I think we're safe on that.
Yeah.
So you decided to take this work and put it into book form to make it more accessible to more people. Can you talk a little bit about how that process came about?
Sure. Well, a lot of, you know, one of the beautiful things about Mass Art is we have guest artists come through, and they usually give a lecture, and in the morning they meet with all the grad students and evaluate their work, and then in the afternoon they have sort of with the undergrads. And a bunch of artists were telling me this deserves to be a book. And so I thought, wow. And so I talked about it with the faculty, and people were saying, yeah, this could be a book. And so I had been showing my work to a publisher, and that fell through at the last minute. They're wonderful people. And so 2 friends of mine who were photographers said, go to our publisher, L'Artiere in Italy, and let them look at the work. So I sent them a PDF, and they came back to me and said, we'd like to make a book out of this.
So what was that process like? How did you make the edit? How did you decide on the cover? You know, there's lots of on-demand publishing that happens, so people can create photo books of family and friends, or of, you know, some type of narrative series. But because you're working with a larger publisher, how did that collaboration work?
So, first of all, they're in Italy and I'm in the U.S., so that's really hard because even for Zoom, there's a little bit of a time zone issue. But in terms of sending back and forth proofs, you know, FedEx in the United States is a 1-day thing. And FedEx to Italy is a 3-day thing. So, you know, they send me something, it's 3 days, then I look at it, we have a Zoom, we talk about it. They send me another thing, it's 3 days later, the whole thing takes a week. But in terms of how a lot of the book was sequenced, Andrea Modica, who is a friend of mine and who used this publisher, she's one of the people that said, use these people. She said, I just give them a box of prints and let them sequence because they do an incredible job. And that's what I did. I gave them 130 prints and they sequenced it.
And how many of the 130 made it into the book?
Originally 40, but we ended up with, I think, 50.
It's a pretty good number. It's
Yeah.
certainly representational. I think a book of 130 pages might be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of huge photo books. I think you kind of lose the thread. But they have her name escapes me, but they have a really fantastic designer who came up with some really wonderful design issues. The front cover is cut through in a circle, and you look in that circle to a photograph of Grace. It's not, it's not on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what that's called, but and they made a better sequence. I worked on this sequence. So first of all with Grace, then of all I worked on it with a friend of mine, and then I worked on it with one of my professors. And the sequence that they came up with was infinitely better than all the sequences that I had made.
Well, I think sometimes we get very close to our own work. I know as a photographer, when I was shooting, I was obsessed by my own art, and people would look at the work and say, oh no, that's definitely not the one. So
Right.
I know that in editing, it can be an extraordinary experience and certainly eye-opening to see how others see your work.
Yeah, I mean, I was just delighted with their sequence. I couldn't have done a better job. The really big issue that we went back and forth on was the printing and getting the printing right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a bunch of photographer friends that helping me to evaluate the prints. And a professor of mine from Mass Art came in with a loop and looked at all the prints and said, they have the wrong screen. You need to have a different screen. And I was told that to think about the book as a cousin to the prints. Mm-hmm. In fact, we have siblings. They're very close. Some of them I actually like better in the book than the ones that I've printed. And but I think they did a really wonderful job, and they're wonderful. They're twin brothers, and they're truly wonderful people.
That's great.
I know not everybody has a great experience with the publisher, but my experience was magic.
That's good. That's hard to find, for sure. So this journey that you've had with Grace has been magical, I think, right? How does Grace feel about all of this success for you?
Grace loves it. I'm actually working on a project that doesn't include her right now, and she's sort of upset about it because
a little disappointed.
She feels she doesn't want to be excluded, and I'm thinking about how I can put her in this project because we enjoy working so much with each other, and it's so meaningful to our marriage. Actually, it's been a wonderful experience for us to work together.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your work and your words today with us. I truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm truly honored that you chose me to be here, and the work looks lovely at WinCAM.
It really does. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Optics, featured artist in the Griffin Gallery at WinCAM. Grace is on the walls of WinCAM through February 28th and is free and open to the public during WinCAM's regular hours of operation. WinCAM is located at 32 Swanton Street. For more information on the Griffin, the Gallery at WinCAM, or other programs offered at either the Griffin or WinCAM, please log on to our website at griffinmuseum.org. Thanks for watching.